Hey there, men. Mike Yarbrough here of Wolf and Iron. I thought I'd talk to you guys about something cool that happened. I don't know if you guys follow Jordan V. Peterson, but he recently posted his latest podcast episode about the Munk Debate. So this is apparently a debate thing that goes on in Canada, I guess. I'm kind of new to that, but it's a really interesting discussion about political correctness. There are 4 panelists. Let's see, you've got Michael Dyson, Michelle Goldberg, Stephen Fry, and Jordan Peterson. I'll kind of describe them here in a second. You guys are probably familiar with Jordan Peterson. But the debate's all about political correctness, and it's an interesting thing to listen to. There might be a way to watch it on YouTube, I'm not sure. Not because they actually do a good job of talking about political correctness at all, actually. But they talk about a lot of other issues, things related to race, things related to sexism, equality, and things of that nature. And but they don't do a very good job of discussing what it means to be politically correct and what political correctness is. And the way it's set up is that there are supposed to be 2 people that are for political correctness in some kind of not well-defined meaning, and then 2 people against political correctness in maybe a little bit better defined sense. It's easier to be wholly against something rather than it is to be for it in parts, especially if those parts are not well-defined. So I'm going to do a little bit of discussion here. I'm going to define what political correctness is and why we shouldn't want to have anything to do with it, and I think it would have ended the debate rather quickly. But I do recommend listening to it. And I think it's also interesting. I don't know if you guys who have listened to this already, you might have picked up on this. But the debate stage is like this. It's set up where you have Michael Dyson, who would be kind of your stereotypical angry black man with a chip on his shoulder. Michelle Goldberg, who comes across as more of the typical feminist, emotional kind of driven person, but not necessarily intellectually strong. You have Jordan B. Peterson, who comes across as almost a stereotypical intellectual white guy, philosophizes, through things. Then you got Stephen Fry, who's actually an older gay Jewish man, who's also married to a much younger, like a guy who's 30 years younger than him. But who's Jordan Peterson and he are on the opposing side. They're opposing political correctness, whereas Michael Dyson and Michelle Goldberg are for it in some kind of way. Now, the reason I describe them like that in these kind of very sort of trite mannerisms is because in that setting, they are all very much caricatures, which I think is very interesting, right? It's a discussion about political correctness, and they've done a very good job of setting the stage with people who really represent almost, the stereotypes down to a T. None of them were really just your average Joe. Let's talk about political correctness. But they also, as debates often go, and this drives me crazy, they really dance around the issue at hand, right? Stephen Fry actually did, I think, the best job of all the people in the debate in talking about just in form and in substance. He just did a really, really good job. I was really surprised that he and I lined up with a lot of things. Maybe I should start rethinking some of my life decisions. But anyhow, and Jordan Peterson did a good job as always, but he's Jordan Peterson. I mean, he just kind of comes at things from up here, way up here, and then eventually tries to get people down to where they can kind of understand it. And I've already described Michael Dyson and Michelle Goldberg, but you can go listen to the debate, and you should. Political correctness is simple. It's this. It started out by politicians. Say a politician wants to go make a speech someplace, or they want to run some kind of ad campaign, and they've got somebody looking over their shoulder and kind of looking at what they're going to say or what this ad's going to imply. And you got this person going, I don't think this is such a good idea. You're going to be speaking to a bunch of blue-collar guys, and this is a little bit too high level for them. They're not going to understand this kind of language. Or maybe it's you're talking to a primarily black audience, or some women, and so we're just going to take these things out. We're going to just remove these things and maybe add in some of these other words, or just change this stuff up a bit. Right? That's political correctness in its truest form. That's where we get the idea from. And so it's censorship in a sense, but it's also just this kind of covering up of, we don't really get a chance to see the true politician. We just get a chance to see sort of the edited, whitewashed, sanitized sort of version. And none of us can stand that, right? I mean, we hate that. We all feel like we're just being pandered to when people talk to us that way. And so, of course, none of us actually want to be involved in political correctness in that sense, and what true political correctness looks like. And it's come to the rest of us in society as a not very well-defined type of thing. It's more of this feeling, and they actually talk about this in the debate. It's a feeling. It's a sort of this sense. And really, it's an oppressive sense, is the way I feel it. It's a sense of guilt and of shame because you don't really know what you're supposed to say to what people, but you've gotten this sense that politicians have kind of led the way in saying that if you talk certain ways to certain people, you don't get elected. And we've taken that in to say if you talk a certain way to certain people, you're going to get fired, or you're going to get lambasted on social media or something like that. But we don't have editors checking our speech, right? We don't have anybody kind of qualifying the things that we're getting ready to say. And so we end up just not saying anything, which is worse than saying the wrong thing. I'll tell you, some of the best friendships start off the messiest. And you guys have probably experienced this yourself. You say the wrong thing, you have to go and you make an apology or what have you. There's some mess at the beginning of the friendship, and you have to make a decision right then. I'm either going to accept this person as they are and be friendly with them, or I'm not, right? And that makes for some of the strongest relationships because you're just coming right off being who you are. If imagine you're in the situation where you're a white guy that doesn't is afraid to talk to black guys because he doesn't really know what he's supposed to say, how to relate. He's got this political kind of correctness mindset. And so he's all chummy with the white guys at work and that kind of stuff. But with the black guys at work, he just sort of, real short conversations. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, okay, that's good. Kind of let them talk first and, don't really go back and forth. Now, what does that say? Does that help anybody in terms of feeling equal or feeling like they're part of a team? No, it doesn't, actually. It's asinine and stupid. The debate actually touched on equality quite a bit, as if political correctness somehow gives you equality or somehow helps. And it certainly doesn't, guys. You got to understand this. You cannot manufacture equality. It actually goes against the whole idea of equality, right? You can't say, I want to be seen as a man amongst men, or as a woman amongst women, as a human amongst other humans, and as an equal. Oh, but don't forget, my ancestors were treated terribly. Oh, don't forget, there's something different about me. Oh, don't forget, I feel oppressed when you say certain things, right? You can't make these kinds of jokes. You can't make these kinds of comments. And by the way, you got to refer to me as specifically this kind of way. Well, you've ruined equality for yourself. You really have. You see, here's the thing about equality. It has no guarantees with it. True equality means that you are open to criticism, you are open to jokes, you're open to the good things and to the bad things alike. When humans relate to each other, it kind of goes like this. There is kind of a hierarchy, right? At the bottom, if you're at the bottom, you get nothing but insults from people who are at the middle or at the top. And certainly all throughout history, people of all cultures just about have experienced being at the bottom in some way. And it's just a life of insults, a life of looking down upon. But when you're equal, some people think that this means that now everything's peaceful and everything's happy. And that's not the way it works. When you're equal, you actually get all the good talk and you also get all the negative stuff. Okay, that's what it means to be equal. This is why when you go to your family and you have different dynamics inside the home than you do outside with other people, right? You're able to say things to each other as family members, brothers and sisters talk to each other in a different kind of way than friends do a lot of times. It's because they see each other more as equals, and so they call each other out on things. Now, when you're at the top, or when you've set yourself aside in some kind of way, you've made yourself separate from everybody else, so you're not equal, you're different, or you're better than, this is when you either get the butt kissing, or people complimenting you all the time, or people just not saying certain things to you, but you're not equal. Okay, you don't get to be equal and be different from everybody else. Equality means you get to share in humanity. There's another piece I want to touch on here. that the debate didn't hit on, and I think it would have been really, really good for somebody to talk about, especially with Michael Dyson. So in the debate, Dyson comes across he's very open about the fact that he feels like white people have been in positions of power for so long and black people have been oppressed for so long. So there's some kind of makeup that needs to happen there, or there's something that needs to change in terms of that maybe political correctness would help in some kind of way, more than just simple being respectful of people and loving people. And he's a pastor too, I believe, which is kind of odd, right? I believe it says in Galatians, for now there is neither Jew nor Greek nor slave nor free nor male nor female, but Christ, but all are one as Christ is in all, right? Something like that. And so we're all united in Christ, essentially. But, anyhow, watch the debate. You'll kind of get what I'm saying on this. But when it comes to equality and past wrongs, there is this often overlooked, and that is the ability to forgive. And which is a very Christian thing to do, right? You have the ability to forgive. And you can forgive like that. It doesn't have to be, true forgiveness doesn't mean somebody has to make up for all the things that their ancestors did or that they even did in their whole life. And actually the best forgiveness, the most beloved forgiveness, is the kind that happens when it's really not deserved. Now you and I are very separated from any past sins of our ancestors in terms of oppression of blacks or Jews or wherever you may happen to come from. But it doesn't necessarily mean, and it doesn't mean that we're at all responsible for their actions. And you shouldn't be held to that kind of responsibility. I mean, think about it, right? Imagine this in a marriage. Imagine if my wife comes downstairs to give me a hug because she's going to have a great day and she wants to treat me as her beloved husband. And I say, oh, hang on now. You might remember how your great-grandparents treated my great-grandparents. We need to get this thing sorted out before we can continue on, right? That'd be ridiculous. It doesn't work that way. And in fact, for many interracial couples out there who have made the decision to be united by love, there is an implicit and maybe even an explicit forgiveness that takes place. And so what we're seeing is that individuals who are in interracial marriages can find a way to get beyond these differences to the point where they can have a family together, right? And yet we still have organizations and people out there championing the idea that somehow we need to make up for things in order for there to be some kind of equality. I don't agree with that. People are living it out every single day. That doesn't need to be the case. What does it take? It takes the ability to say, I forgive you, I forgive anything that may have happened, and I'm willing to love you for who you are, just as you are, and not expect anything more from you. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd rather have that discussion than political correctness any day. All right, guys, a lot of things I could say on this. I've probably gone a little bit long, but I appreciate you guys. I'd love to have any feedback on this. If you watched the debate, let me know your thoughts. I find these things really interesting, and I don't know if you're like me. When I see a debate happening, I see myself in there on the stage, and I'm like, oh, I would just roast them. I would just have them, I'd have them for dinner. There's so many opportunities there. I know when you're in the moment it's different, and I know there are these rules. Don't get sucked into somebody else's argument and stuff like that, but, what have you. Okay, I'm having fun here. Talk to you guys later.